Hey guys, new video, new day. I'm going to take you around, do a quick update on the Hummer. I've done a lot since. The last video was kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of little clips, which I'm sure this one will probably be similar. But I'm trying to get through the wiring. I'm in wiring purgatory hell right now. And just trying to get it all knocked out. So I'm going to give you a quick update so you know what's going on. It's taken me a lot longer than I originally planned, mainly because every time I try to do something, I find something else that needs to be done. I'll give you some for instances while I'm doing the video. But there she is. First thing you'll probably notice is the dual alternators. Now, that was planned from day one. I just didn't really tell you about it. And all I did was I used a dual alternator bracket for the LS motor off of eBay. And then I have two 145 amp AC Delco alternators. I've done a lot of wiring here. This harness is done. I've got the harness for that's 10 gauge that runs to the fuse block under the dash. This harness triggers both alternators when ignition is on. It activates those. I've got a rewire still in the process of the winch box because I mounted the winch box up here originally, and the 15,000 pound winch is under there. So I've just got to rerun the power wire for it. I'm going to do that today. And then the ground wire wasn't long enough because it used to be hooked to a different spot in the battery box. I also discovered that my air box is not exactly installed correctly because it has a pretty good gap in it. So I've got to take it off, reinstall it the right way. The battery box looks a whole lot better. What you've got here is a marine grade isolator that's good up to 165 amps that'll take the single alternator input and output to two power sources, one for each battery, and allow one-way charging in, but will not allow the batteries to go to each other and not allow anything to go back to the alternator. So this battery box is almost done. I've just got a few things to do to the ground there, and then I've got to run the winch grounds in here. But I'm real happy with the way this turned out. The back of the motor is good. I found out yesterday the doghouse didn't fit real well, so I went in and cut out some of the insulation, which again I'll show you some of that to make it fit, because it was pressing so hard against the back of the passenger side cylinder head that it would not clip like it normally does. So I've done that. I've taken off the fuel lines. I'm redoing the entire fuel system. Again, another thing that popped up. I've got a regular sensor. I've got the gauges removed completely. I'm going to be redoing all of the gauges. So it's turned into quite an adventure. This is not perfect, but nothing touches the transmission tunnel except for this vacuum line, and I'll fix that too. So I'm happy with that. It's not perfect, but I'm happy with it. This battery box, the 12 volt box, I've got my fuel pump feeds, got my main wire. I need to get a thing to crimp onto there. This is the solenoid for the fuel pump. It's ready to go once I get the fuel tank back in. Yes, I've taken out the fuel tank. That's back here. And so I've got a lot going on with this thing. I got all the armor put on it appropriately. I just need to, I didn't like the inline fuel setup, the inline fuel pump, which is right here from Holley. It's perfectly fine fuel pump. It's just loud, it gets hot. And all the things I don't want, you know, branches or rocks or something coming up and hitting it and breaking it and messing it up. So I'll get into a different video about what we're going to do to replace that or fix that. Over here I've got the gauges all out. Like I said, we're going to be running completely different, or a whole new set of gauges, except the speedo will be factory. And then I don't have the light, but I've shown you under there before. Those are the two fuse blocks. And that's where I'm kind of at right now. I will tell you, before I get into running some of this bigger double-aught wire for the winches, I'm going to go over here and figure out why I have an exhaust leak. Because when they did the motor swap, when the shop that did the motor swap did it, they went ahead and did the exhaust for me. And so to have an exhaust leak on a truck that supposedly has brand new exhaust on it, I got to figure out what's going on. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'll be back in a second. I have found the problem. So you come up here, obviously new exhaust, old exhaust. I got a nut. Everybody see it? A nut? Where am I? A nut. Can y'all see that one? It's a little harder. And then, surprise, surprise, no nut. And so you wonder, why would an exhaust shop not put a nut on that stud? Because they stripped it out. So instead of fixing it, they just bolted it up halfway, and now there's a crazy exhaust leak right here. You know, I just don't know why people can't do things the right way the first time. But I'm going to take off the exhaust manifold, pull that stud out, and get it fixed right. So I got the exhaust manifold off. You want to know why you have an exhaust leak? Well, I showed you a second ago there was a bolt missing. So the first proof of that exhaust leak is when you have that black soot shows you where the exhaust leak. Now this exhaust leak was way worse than I thought. But then how about this? So that is the bolt on the exhaust manifold. And that has no threads from here to here. So somebody put the impact, screwed it on, got the impact going, cross-threaded it, bop, 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 came back off of it and said, screw it, just leave it there. You know, not only should that not have happened, but the shop that put this motor in should have seen that and fixed it. So, lesson learned. Lesson learned, definitely. All right, there you go. Oh, there you go. Exhaust manifold's off. I will tell you, never buy these. Let's see, Street Firewire by MSD. Do not buy these wires. Why? Pull off 8 wires, 3 of them come off of their crimp. 3 out of 8. How do you suck that bad? I'm going to buy AC Delco spark plug wires, factory AC Delco spark plug wires. And I'm gonna have to get a new passenger side exhaust manifold because the one that came off is so rusted, that stud that's stripped, it's so rusted that it ain't gonna happen. It's easier just to buy the manifold and put a new one on. So I'm gonna run to the hardware store. There it is. New passenger side exhaust manifold. Kind of bummed it's not GM or AC Delco, it's Dorman, but it's what the parts store had. So I'm gonna put this in there and be done with it. I've also got AC Delco spark plug wires coming, but they won't be here till tomorrow. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this knocked out, put the old dipstick tube back in, and remember, steel bolts going into aluminum head. Make sure you use whatever the hell that stuff's called. Not Loctite. I forget. Silver shiny stuff, but I'll show you when I get to it. Anti-seize. Aluminum anti-seize. So anytime you have steel going into aluminum head or any aluminum, use anti-seize, or you will take the aluminum threads with you when you back the bolt out the next time. So there you go. I'm gonna go ahead and knock out the bolts in the head, torque them down, and I'll be done with the exhaust manifold fiasco. Mission accomplished. It's in there, looking nice. I don't know, let's see if you can see the, right there, yeah. All 3 bolts. The gasket compressed down good. Shouldn't have any more exhaust leaks. I'd be highly surprised if I have any more exhaust leaks. Now I do have AC Delco plugs like I just mentioned coming. Now we're gonna move on to wiring, battery wiring. This is not on all the way. So I'm gonna show you real quick how to crimp a battery cable the correct way. At least the way I think it's the correct way. So I've got this battery wire. I want to come into the box, kind of loop around, and then hook. The reason I'm looping around is so I have some excess if I ever need to cut it or adjust it or change it or whatever. So I need to slip over some shrink tube and then loosely put this on and get it kind of how you want it. So I'm gonna do it like this. I think I have enough here to kind of adjust that. And then once you have it how you want it, which mine I want like that. And the reason I put it on here is because I'm going to crimp this, and I don't want to crimp it and then have to twist the cable up. So now I take my trusty permanent marker and I mark so I can line it back up. Now here's the part where a lot of people mess up. Is to crimp this right, you have to have a set of these things. So I'm going to look on here. This is 2 gauge, so I need J and H. So set up good, J and H. These you can change the dies on for different gauge wires. And then I'm going to kind of set it up here on this. I've got a little pocket I've been using. So now all I'm going to do is set the wire in. Got to come over a little bit. Once I get the wire in, just going to put a little bit of tension on it, like that. Line up the lines, and then crimp. Now with 2 gauge, it says I need to crimp just once. So I'm done. I'll move these to the side. Thank you, by the way, to my buddy Brad, who lends me these awesome tools to get the work done. And so as you can see, now it is crimped and it's got these flat edges, and trust me, that thing is never ever 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 coming off. I got a stray. Let me get that off. There we go. Now I get the heat tube up here. I get my trusty torch wherever it went. Well, maybe I don't have the torch. My tools are in such disarray. But all you do, get the torch, heat that up, and you'll be good to go. And then all you got to do is slide it onto here, put the nut on, and I'm good to go. The battery is hooked up. Everything's tight. Still got this for the fuel pump. These are the fuel pump wires. I'll get into that when we do the fuel system, and I'll kind of explain why we're doing the fuel system. Got the 24-volt box done. I don't know too much about this short ground wire. I tried to keep it as short as possible, but I might have made it too short. We'll see how that goes. If I have to, I'll make up another one. I got plenty of double-aught ground wire. The other thing I was working on was getting the winch cable. So I have a massive winch cable here, and I've been trying to run it behind the motor, but with the doghouse on, there's the doghouse up there, there's just not any room at all behind the motor. Like, I'm kind of nervous about even fitting fuel lines through there. So this is what I did with the winch. I've got the controller box mounted up here. I've always had it up here. It works great. The controllers plug in right here and right here, front rear winch. So I've got that remote mounted. The main cables go in this big loom. They go beside the radiator, go underneath, and then hook to the winch. But the main power right here, I've been having trouble finding where to route it. So finally I found a good spot. I feel like it's a good spot. I come up here, hook to this, come down, and then it runs right over the MSD box, but I'm gonna get it up off of the MSD box. It will not be laying on top of it. And then there's a perfect channel between the block and the water pump. Let me go over here where it kind of runs down, goes down between the body and the frame. It stays away from the exhaust. It's really how it was run originally. but it's about a foot too long now, so I got to cut it, re-crimp it like I did earlier on that 2-gauge wire. And I feel like I got a lot done today. Exhaust manifold, that's a big deal. Don't have to worry about that exhaust leak. Again, never ever ever buy street fire wire by MSD plugs. They even had dielectric grease in them and they still pulled out 3 out of 5. But that's it, guys. That's one day's work. I'm gonna hit it again, and hopefully one day I'll get this thing buttoned up and I can show you it running, driving, doing some cool stuff, going on trips, etc. Winning rallies.